The Alien Annihilators Book 2, The Mages of Magic, Chapter 21, Sidon the Coward. Cleo and her friends made their way back to the village leader's house. They were finally going to meet the guy, see who had helped them through the terrible illness they'd suffered in the desert. Cleo knocked on the door, then stood back. After a minute, the door opened, and a tanned man opened the door. He was probably reaching his 50s, but still looked athletic and well-built. "Ah, you young ones are already on your feet. I take it you're feeling better after that arduous journey through the desert?" he asked, and they all nodded agreement. "Good. My name's Sidon, by the way. My son, Trevor, says that you wish to have an audience with me about an important matter," the man Sidon said. "Yes, it's very important. We want to discuss it with you now. Can we come in?" Cleo asked. Sidon nodded his head and stepped aside. So the four of them entered and got seated in some of the sofas in the living room. Cleo and Kenneth in one, Rachel in another, and Brandon in another. That left one more sofa for Sidon, which he got seated in shortly after the others. "Please tell me what you wish to discuss with me," Sidon prompted, looking at each of them in turn. "Well, I suppose we can start with, what do you know about your ancestry? Is there anyone significant in it?" Brandon asked the man. "Ah, yes, this is a common question. I wish I could provide you with a more detailed information. In fact, it is a question I would often ask my dad, but he would always brush them off, telling me it was irrelevant, and that it distracted us from our true purpose, using our mysterious powers for the good of the village. Again, I'm sorry I could not provide any explicit details," Sidon said. "Okay, and what do you know about the alien annihilators?" Brandon asked. Sidon's face showed recognition of them. Really, he looked surprised to hear it being said aloud. I I know that it is an organization established centuries ago, and that some form of wizardry was practiced as a defense against the alien race, and most of all against Lord Blazer," Sidon said silently. "Yes, and who led this organization, do you know?" Brandon asked. "A man named Gregory Brunt. He was a wizard of great strength and skill, and the legends say he defeated Lord Blazer with a weapon called the Gauntlet of Light," Sidon said. "Yes, but before him and Lord Blazer came face to face, Lord Blazer was able to infiltrate the alien annihilator's secret underground hideout, killing many of them. Gregory's youngest three children. They were amongst them, and when they were fortunate enough to have survived it, they promised to disband from the organization and make their way to a village of their choice. There they would ensure that the gifts given to them by their father would not be for nothing. They would use it to protect them and provide for their needs," Brandon said. "The gifts given to them by their father, it is hereditary, meaning it is passed down by each successive generation. We're just interested, are you a descendant of the second eldest son, the one that is known to have traveled to this very village all those centuries ago?" Brandon asked. Sidon made a dismissive gesture. "No, I can't be. I am just a common magician. I can use my powers to hydrate the thirsty, and I can even have influence over the movement and shapes of water, but nothing that would indicate I was descended from a mage of the same caliber as Gregory Brunt," Sidon said. "I want you to think about what you just said. There's nothing that would indicate that you're a descendant of Gregory. Not even a hint. Are you certain?" Brandon asked. Um, well, my powers can grow quite strong when I feel like it desperately needs to be used," To protect the people of my village, Sidon said, and Brandon nodded. Like, for example, a month ago I caught sight of two shadowy figures lurking around the village outskirts. I had a bad feeling about it. I saw them pull out their bows and draw, and saw the flames dancing on the tip of the arrows. It looked as if they wished to burn down our entire village. Sidon said. They were near a spring of water, and using all my focus and will, I managed to send a wave their way. It was surprisingly big, and sent the two archers clear from the village. I was so shocked at what I had just done, but glad that I had just saved the village from possibly burning down, Sidon said. Cleo and the rest shared thoughtful glances. This man could be the one we're looking for, Cleo thought. He just needs practice and training. But this is simply insufficient evidence to say I was descended from one as powerful as Gregory Brunt himself, the one who took down Lord Blazer and saved the world, Sidon said meekly. Sidon, Lord Blazer is going to be resurrected soon, and he will do just that if we don't gather one descendant from each of Gregory's children. I know there's no guarantee that you are a descendant of Gregory, but I know a place where you can train yourself and become the mage you were destined to become. We just need you to believe in yourself, Brandon said. Even if I did believe, I couldn't just leave my people behind. We've been through everything together, including droughts and famine. But they could manage without you. The innkeeper of the place I stayed, he said there are storehouses full of water and food for emergencies. They would be well off for years to come, even if you did leave them for a while, Brandon said. But the two archers I mentioned earlier, if they burn the village with their flaming arrows, my people will be forced to leave in a hurry, and the storehouses will burn with everything else in the village. Will they be well off then? Sidon challenged. I need to stay so that next time they show up, I can use my influence over water to send another wave to wash them clear of the village. I'm sorry, but by leaving this village, I put its people in great risk, and I do not believe that is worth doing under any circumstances, Sidon said, finality in his tone. Okay, I guess we have to capture these two shadowy figures. To put your mind at ease, Brandon addressed his companions. Come on, let's not waste any time. We have to earn Sidon's assistance by nightfall, so we have to start planning now, Brandon said. Brandon stood up and looked at Sidon. We'll have these two captured when we get back. When we save your village from them, you'll have to assist us on our quest. Now let's get out of here and form a plan on how to capture these guys. Chapter 22 Tracking the Archers. Thankfully, Sidon had agreed to the terms Brandon had set on the table, and so the four friends left his house and went back to Brandon's place, getting seated in their original spots. Okay, Sidon said that these two archers can be found lurking in the outskirts around the village. I wish we had more to work with, but, Brandon said. Cleo interrupted. Guys, if these two figures are part of the same group that tried to kill me, Kenneth and Rachel, then we might be up against more than just two people. We might be up against as many as 30. No, Brandon said. I know this may be hard to believe, but I think the people who attacked you were just two people. The same people that tried to burn the village with flame arrows. Cleo wondered if she'd heard Brandon right. Just two people. The arrows that had rained down on her last night. It was far beyond anything that could be accomplished by just two people. If you'd saw what I saw, Cleo began. Cleo, it is just two archers. I came across them last time I traveled through this desert, and barely escaped with my life. I saw the two archers in the distance. their arms moving at lightning speed, to send down a storm of arrows just like the one you're describing, Brandon said. Dang, Cleo thought. If Brandon was correct, then going out into the open desert surrounding the village, it seemed like a suicide mission. But they had to capture the two, to protect the village and to earn the respect of the village leader and convince him his people were safe so he would join them on their quest to stop Lord Blazer's resurrection. Okay, so these archers can shoot with dead accuracy and can fire their weapons in rapid succession. What is our plan to find them, defend ourselves from them, and finally to capture them and bring them to the village leader? Cleo asked. Brandon considered. We could always start with the same location you and your friends were attacked by them. Cleo, I believe you would know where that is. Please lead the way, Brandon said. They saw the place they were looking for a ways off. There were dozens of arrows on the ground. Some had their heads stuck in the sand, others simply laid there. Look there, tracks. Let's follow them, Brandon said. After 30 minutes of walking, they made it to a water spring with a large rock nearby. Brandon knelt by the water, leaned his head forward, and breathed in the scent with his nose. Ah, I detect a smell foreign to that of water. Poison. Enough to kill a person within 5 minutes. I bet you anything our two favorite archers come here often, laying in wait for travelers to partake of the water, and probably taking pleasure in watching them die of the poison in their system, Brandon said. Kenneth looked at Rachel. Lucky we didn't force any of this crap down Rachel's throat, right? Kenneth asked, but it was Brandon who answered. Indeed. Now if only we knew where the two of them went from here. Brandon laid his eyes on the large rock to the side of the water spring. He smelled the air, then pointed up there. That must be where they perched themselves on. If I could just get on top. Quickly he climbed to the top of it and inhaled the scent of the air. He seemed to find what he was looking for, or sniff what he was looking for. Females, two of them, sisters. Lucky the wind was not strong last night. I think if we follow the trail of their scent, we will eventually come across where these two sisters are holed up. I believe we should go in that direction, Brandon said, and held an arm to the west of their location. Whoa, this guy's got a nose like a bloodhound, Kenneth said to her friends quietly. Okay, just let me get off this rock, and then we follow the scent into the west, Brandon said. The Ravine, Chapter 23. The ravine, the rocks, and the explosion. The scent they followed eventually took them to a large ravine. Two steep rocky cliffs faced each other. A narrow sandy passage lay between the two cliffs. Cleo and company stopped at its entrance with Brandon in the lead. All right, I sensed that the two sisters went through this ravine last night. Hopefully once we pass through here, it won't be much further until we find wherever these two are camped out, Brandon said. So Brandon walked into the narrow passage and the others followed him. They were about halfway through the ravine when Brandon halted, making everyone else stop as well. He turned around and his expression looked confused. The scent, it's gone. Maybe they'd climbed up the cliff's surface here, but that wouldn't explain why their scent disappeared, Brandon said. They all instinctively looked up at the rocky wall surrounding them. Nothing looked out of the ordinary to the three younger friends, but Brandon went closer to the right wall and looked carefully. This wall is cracked and has holes in it. Sith marks, I bet. They probably used the Sith to support their weight against the wall. and find footing for their feet as they used it to climb up, Brandon said. His eyes followed the marks on the wall. Then suddenly his eyes went wide. Quickly, Brandon created a magic shield around the four of them, right before an explosion sounded, right where he'd been looking. Cleo could feel the impact of the rocky shrapnel against the shield, vibrating the whole barrier and making her whole body shake. Brandon couldn't hold the barrier much longer and let it down just when the explosion stopped. The wall where the bomb had just been, there were cracks all over it, and the cracks were spreading until Brandon looked at them, panic in his eyes. Those rocks won't hold much longer. We have to get out of here, he yelled and started running. On cue, a large stone peeled off the wall, landing right behind Rachel and making her jump forwards, shrieking and falling to the floor. Cleo pulled her to her feet, and the rest of them started sprinting after Brandon. The rocks were really beginning to fall now. In their wake, the jagged rocks tumbled down in rapid succession, refusing to give up on trying to crush them. It took them everything they had to keep ahead of the violent avalanche of jagged debris storming after them. When a large stone landed right in front of Kenneth, the momentum of his sprint made him fall to the ground. When he tried to stop, he landed right in front of the stone and quickly got up. The stone had wedged itself between the two cliff faces. Hopping, Kenneth tried to grip the ledge of the rock, but he couldn't reach it. Cleo and Rachel were right behind him, and the avalanche of falling debris was approaching their position fast. Kenneth had an idea. Crouching, he put his hands together and intertwined the fingers. Hop on, Cleo, I'll boost you up, he said urgently. Cleo put her foot in Kenneth's hands, and he hoisted Cleo up with all his might. Gripping the ledge, she quickly pulled herself up. Laying prone on the stone, she reached her arm down. Grab my hand, I'll pull you up, she said urgently. Kenneth began to reach his hand up, but Rachel grabbed him by the shoulders and pushed him back. He fell on the ground and hit his head on a rock. Blood gushed from the wound and he fell unconscious. Rachel reached for Cleo's hand, but Cleo pulled it back. What the heck, Rachel? Why would you do that to him? Cleo yelled. What? All I did was, Rachel began, but when she looked behind her and saw Kenneth on the ground unconscious, regret filled her eyes. But she looked back at Cleo. We have to get out of here. It's too late for him, Rachel began. Quickly, Cleo hopped down and went to Kenneth's side. She tried to pull him up and put one of his arms over her shoulder, but he was too heavy. With an exasperated sigh, Rachel went to Kenneth's other side and helped Cleo lift him up. Once they got to the base of the stone in their way, they set him down gently. Looking behind them, Cleo knew they only had seconds until they all died here and now. Cleo crouched and did the same thing Kenneth had done. She put her hands together and intertwined her fingers together. Rachel didn't need to be prompted. She put her foot in it, and Cleo hoisted her onto the stone in their way. Once she was up, Cleo leaned Kenneth against a rock in their way, grabbed him by the waist, and hoisted him up with all her strength. Rachel was able to slip her arms under the pits of both Kenneth's arms and pull him to safety. When Rachel held her hand out for Cleo, she hurriedly grabbed it, and Rachel hoisted her up and over the ledge. Looking at the passage past the stone, Cleo could see that they still had a ways to go, and still had an unconscious Kenneth to carry. Where was Brandon? Why wasn't he helping us? Hoping this would work, Cleo pointed her gauntlet at Kenneth and used its power to levitate him off the ground. She just managed to place him on the top of the right cliff, hoping he would be safe up there for a while. Then she and Rachel hopped off the stone and raced to the exit, just as the debris caught up to them and threatened to crush them. When they finally made it out, they saw Brandon tied up and gagged. Then something hard hit their heads and they fell to the floor and passed out. Chapter 24: The Catapult, the Bomb, and the Village. When Kenneth awoke, he opened his eyes and saw before him a drop of about 50 meters. Immediately he rolled away from the edge and stood up. His head ached, and he placed a hand on the back of his head. When he withdrew it, he could see blood on his fingertips. "Rachel," Kenneth hissed to himself. "I'll kill her when I get to." Kenneth trailed off when he saw the two figures walking off into the distance. Each of them were carrying a person in their arms, while forcing a man to follow them. The man's arms were tied behind his back. When the man looked behind him, Kenneth got his first good look at him. Brandon. The two people they were carrying must have been Cleo and Rachel. These two figures must have been the people they were looking for, and they were headed in the direction of the village. Kenneth took off his backpack, unzipped it, and searched it until he found. "There it is," Kenneth whispered, then pulled out the magnum he'd confiscated from Darrell. "It's time to save my friends and stop those two from destroying the village." When Cleo woke up, her back was slumped against a piece of wood staked to the ground. When she looked behind her, Rachel and Brandon were also slumped back against it. She tried to stand but felt something hard biting into her wrists. Looking down, she could see the metal shackles around them and saw the chains connecting them to the wooden stake. They were trapped. "One of them is awake. Cleo, right?" a woman's voice said. It came from behind. This large wooden device standing not too far in front of her. It was in the shade of a large rock behind them. The woman stepped out and grinned. "Have fun escaping death by falling boulders?" she asked. Cleo gasped. "The bomb. It was you who set it off, wasn't it? We could have died because of you." "Well, we had to. We can't let Sir Sidon's little bounty hunters put us in chains and hand us over to him. We still have an important matter to attend to," Peyton said, gesturing to the wooden device behind her. Cleo got her first good look at it. 4 wooden beams, one long, thick beam in the middle, with a curved black object attached to the head, and a bomb was inside of it. It was a catapult, and the bomb was aimed towards the village. "You're going to destroy the village. You're going to kill dozens upon dozens of people." "Why?" Cleo asked. "Well, this isn't what I wanted to do originally. My plan was originally to burn down some of their houses with flaming arrows," Cleo said, remembering the story Sidon had told them when they were at the village. "Yes, with flaming arrows. And we were damn close to doing exactly that, had our bows drawn and everything. But Sidon stopped you," Cleo finished. "He washed you away with a wave of water, and you cowards tucked your tails between your legs and fled after that," Cleo mocked. "Ha ha, you're lucky I don't give you a slap for that," Peyton said. "But yes, and the fool nearly drowned me. Once my sister recovered, she had to immediately come to my side. I couldn't breathe. She had to give me a combination of both CPR and mouth to mouth to get the water out of my lungs, Peyton said. Whoa, Cleo thought. She hadn't known it'd been that bad. Sidon hadn't gone that deep into the details. Today, Sidon will pay for what he put us through, Peyton said. His people, the people he loves so dearly, the people he swore to protect, they will all die because of him. She began to reach for the mechanism that would send the bomb to the village. Please don't do this. The village has great reserves of food and water. There must be a way for Sidon to make amends to you, Cleo said desperately. This is the amends, Peyton said, lowering her finger to the button that would set off the catapult. A gunshot sounded somewhere nearby, and the wood of the catapult splintered right next to where Peyton's hand was. She dove towards the cover of a large rock on the ground, Petra diving after her from behind the catapult. Cleo looked in the direction of the gunshot. She saw a head peeking over the top of a rock, saw the handgun aimed at the two sisters. Kenneth, he's okay. The two sisters returned fire, drawing their bows and firing at the figure behind the rock in the distance. Kenneth would duck in time for the arrows to come whisking past him, then peek out of cover, following up with a shot of his own. For the next 5 minutes it was constant shots and follow-up shots. After that first 5 minutes it was just complete silence for the next few minutes. The two parties now had a good idea as to the skill of the other party, and neither dared peek their heads over cover. It's 2 against 1, you'll never win, Peyton shouted to the figure in the distance. There was no response. Peyton started to peek over, but quickly lowered her head as she heard rapid fire sound from the rock. Wait, Peyton thought. The weapon the boy had been wielding was a semi-automatic pistol. The fire being shot sounded rapid and automatic, like a machine gun. The boy had just used a decoy grenade. It was a trick. She heard footsteps rapidly approaching her position. Drawing her bow, she began to peek over the rock as the fake automatic fire continued to fill the air. Kenneth, duck, Cleo yelled. Kenneth dove to the base of the rock, and an arrow stuck to the ground right where he'd been. The sisters were right behind this rock, and they knew Kenneth was right on the other side. He had to do something quick. Peyton began to grab the next arrow out of her quiver, knowing Kenneth was an immediate threat, but he didn't give her enough time to reload. He hopped over the rock and tackled Peyton. She just knocked the arrow and pulled it back, but when Kenneth grabbed her at the waist and pushed her to the ground, the shot flew wild and she dropped the bow. Kenneth grabbed her neck and pressed down with his thumbs. He had to suffocate her quickly. There was still another sister he had to worry about. Stop, Petra said, making Kenneth look up. She had her bow drawn, and the arrow was pointed right at Cleo's forehead. He could see the fear in her eyes. Get your hands off her. Stand up, toss your weapon down, and put your hands in the air, Petra yelled. Slowly, Kenneth took his hands off Peyton and heard her splutter for air. He stood up and began to throw his weapon to the ground. But then Cleo acted fast. She swept her right leg in front of her and knocked the bow out of her hands. The arrow narrowly missed her head, but she had no time to dwell on how close she'd been to getting shot. She swung the chain on her wrist over Petra's neck and pulled until Petra was being strangled against a wooden stake. With that taken care of, Kenneth began to aim his weapon at the woman on the floor, but she swung her leg up and kicked it out of Kenneth's hand, sending it flying. Kenneth dove to the weapon, but Peyton scrambled for the bow. Kenneth dove to the weapon while Peyton scrambled for the bow nearby. Once she had it in her hands, she drew the bow and swung around, intent on shooting this kid right in the heart. Ow! Peyton shrieked. Before she could swing around fully, a bullet hit her in the forearm. She dropped the bow and fell to the ground, screaming in pain. Surprised by what Kenneth had done, Cleo weakened her pull against the chain, and Petra fell to the ground unconscious. He did it. He defeated Peyton, Cleo thought. None of the sisters are in any condition to fight us anymore. We've won. Kenneth walked up to Peyton and pointed the gun at her head. Now where's the key to those locks? Tell me, unless you want a bullet between your eyes, Kenneth threatened. Knowing she was defeated, Peyton used her uninjured hand to reach into her pockets and grab out a key. She tossed it at Kenneth's feet, and Kenneth grabbed it off the floor. He raced to Cleo and tackled her with a hug. Pulling away, Kenneth held her and looked into her eyes. I was so scared. I thought they were gonna, Kenneth began. I'm fine. Just a little shook is all, Cleo said weakly, but Kenneth could feel her trembling, could see the fear in her eyes. It's over. These two are gonna sit behind bars for years to come. We've won, Kenneth assured her. Yes, it appears we have, Cleo said quietly. Chapter 25, Rachel the Prisoner. When Kenneth had unlocked Brandon and Cleo from their chains, he told Brandon to rush to the village and tell them two people needed emergency services. One had been strangled and was unconscious, and one had been shot in the arm. It had been 10 minutes since Brandon had left. He'd be returning soon, Cleo hoped. Cleo looked at the chains on Rachel's wrists and looked at her unconscious body slumped against a wooden stake. Cleo wondered why Kenneth hadn't unlocked her yet. When Cleo asked about it, he said, "You'll find out when she wakes up," Kenneth assured her. Right on cue, Rachel began to shuffle in her sleep. She opened her eyes, saw where she was, and looked at the chains on her wrists. "What's going on? Why am I in chains?" Rachel asked. Those two archers we were supposed to capture. They knocked you guys out and had you locked up. With that taken care of, they were going to destroy the village by using that catapult, to swing a bomb into it, destroying everyone. But I took care of them with Cleo's help," Kenneth said. He gestured to the wooden device in front of them for reference. Rachel's eyes widened. Whoa, if I hadn't pushed you back, you may have been captured with the rest of us. I guess I did a good thing back there, she said. You did what you did to save yourself at my own expense. That is not a good thing to do, Kenneth corrected. Rachel looked at the key he was holding, looked at the shackles on her wrists, then looked him in the eye. "So I'm your prisoner now?" she asked. "I could have died back there. You're no better than those thugs we captured in the desert. Or these two archers. Maybe we should tell Sidon to put you in a cell. Let you spend a few years regretting what you put me through," Kenneth said remorselessly. "That's enough, Kenneth. She didn't put you through anything. It was Peyton that set off the bomb, and she's gonna sit behind bars for years to come. Stop this now," Cleo said heatedly. Kenneth turned to Cleo. "How many times are you gonna let Rachel make us suffer? First, she makes us rush through a bandit camp after her. Then she wastes her water and tricks us into giving her our own water out of pity. And now she almost killed me because she couldn't spare the 2 seconds it would have taken me to climb up that damn rock. She needs to be punished. Cleo didn't want to be yelled at again, so she just turned around. She saw a woman on a camel. She was coming right towards them, so she must have been the medic Brandon had sent for. Dismounting the camel, the woman knelt down beside Peyton. "Give me your arm," she said. The medic grabbed the arm and tilted it slightly towards her, inspecting the wound. She saw the hole where the bullet had entered her forearm. "You, girl, help me get her on the camel," she ordered. Cleo ran to her side, and together they hauled Peyton up and onto the camel. "Now the other one," the medic ordered again. Petra had been placed beside her sister earlier. Together they hauled Petra onto the camel as well. Then the medic hopped onto the camel, thanked Cleo for her help, then slapped the camel with the reins, making it gallop towards the village briskly. Cleo looked at Kenneth from where he stood. "We have to go tell Sidon what we've managed to do. If you're gonna unlock Rachel, do it now. If not, then fine. But I'm not going anywhere until you unlock her," Cleo said stubbornly. Kenneth moaned in frustration, and even stomped the sand in anger, but he didn't budge. So Cleo walked to Rachel's side and sat down with her, grabbed out the carton she'd filled with water while they'd been in the village. "Here, Rachel, you must be thirsty," Cleo said, offering the water to her. Rachel grabbed the carton, unscrewed the lid, then took a big swig of water. Putting the water down, she could see Kenneth spectating the exchange in disapproval. She raised a hand to her side and held up a middle finger his way. "Did you see that? She held up the middle finger at me," Kenneth said, confused. Cleo looked down at Rachel's fingers. They were just holding the water carton she'd given her. "She's holding the water I gave her. How can she do that and hold a finger to you at the same time?" Cleo asked. Her right hand went off the carton and she... "Never mind. I don't even care anymore," Kenneth said, and started walking towards the village. This is The Alien Annihilators, Book 2, The Mages of Magic, chapters 21 to 25. And I hope y'all enjoyed, and goodbye.